Joining us now is Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey. He's a former federal prosecutor and Maryland state's attorney. Congressman, I want to ask you first off what your reaction to Congresswoman Craig just said there about the legislation. Yes, it does lower taxes from some Americans, but it's also raising the health care costs for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's given with one hand and taking away a lot more with the other hand. And, you know, some of the tax cuts that they put in place for working class people are time sensitive. They expire in a couple of years, whereas the one for the wealthiest Americans are permanent. And there are other issues, too, like with respect to the taxes on tips. You know, those have to be paid in cash. And there's a $25,000, I think, income cap on that as well. So there's real gamesmanship going on there. And I think as the American people who thought they were going to get a real benefit out of this see what it's really going to be, I think they're going to be angry about this, just like they will about the Medicaid cuts and so many of the other attacks on the middle class in this bill.
Do you think Americans are going to start feeling that impact before the midterm elections, though? Because a lot of these have kind of a delayed effect to them. I know we're already seeing healthcare providers say they're going to start to initiate this because they kind of have to before it goes into place. But are you confident that voters are going to notice this change before they go to the polls?
I think it's critical for Democrats to make sure that we keep it on the radar screen for sure. You're already seeing the Trump administration scramble to try and reposition what these things are. And I think for the ones that phase in later, they'll try and blame it on the Democrats or Biden or something down the road. But we have to be very consistent and relentless, really, in making sure we keep explaining to the public what these impacts are on this bill, and that the source of the bill is Donald Trump, who told them that he was going to help to make their lives better, put money in their pocket, whereas he's doing the exact opposite. And I think the upside on it, on some of these things phasing in, is that it requires us, enables us really to use the upcoming midterm elections to say to the American people, if you want to turn these around, if you want to try and restore or block these cuts to Medicaid and SNAP and the like, the only way to do it is to elect Democrats. We've got to take back the House and the Senate in order to put some sort of constraints on the Trump administration and hopefully restore some of the benefits that people count on. These are life and death benefits to the American people. We need to fight hard to restore that and protect them.
Well, I want to ask you about those benefits because the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, has estimated that nearly 12 million people nationwide are going to be risking losing health insurance due to these Medicaid cuts that are in the bill. And in Maryland in particular, federal spending for the program is projected to be slashed about $16 billion over 10 years. That's 14% decrease. What are you hearing from your constituents about that, and what can local and state lawmakers try to do to compensate for that loss? Anything?
I mean, I heard a lot of concern and anger from my constituents yesterday, and rightly so. I think they're very upset. You know, I live in a district where, you know, the vast majority of the constituents here voted for Ms. Harris, Vice President Harris, to take over. So, you know, this isn't one where we didn't turn out or we didn't vote the right way or anything like that. And they feel, I think, angry that they did all the right things, but they're still being punished in this way. So I think it's critical for us to make sure that we understand why people are angry, but we have to channel that anger in the right way. And it has to focus on 2026. Now, to the state and local issue, keep in mind that the Louisiana state legislature, no Democratic bastion for sure, passed a resolution a few days ago begging the Republicans not to pass the bill in its form because of the Medicaid impacts that it would have on the state. We've got to make sure that state and local legislators carry this message too, because what the Trump administration may be hoping is that they make these cuts. Obviously, states and local governments can't cover all of it, but they might be hoping they'll pick up some of it. But that's going to mean increases in taxes, putting people off the rolls for the coverage that they get, or jacking up the premiums that people are paying, or all of the above. So we've got to make sure that this message is getting out at the state and local level too, especially in red states.
I mean, when it comes to that message, you have Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries delivering it over and over again in this almost 9-hour speech, which broke the record for the longest House floor speech. But, you know, Jeffries could really only delay the bill's vote. And one of the criticisms Democrats have been getting is that constituents want them to do more and show that they're actually making an impact. But the speech did delay the vote enough to the point where, they had to vote on it during the day. And anytime, you saw coverage of it in the media, you got kind of this split screen with Jeffrey's speech and then the passage of the bill. So how important do you think that speech was? And is that a preview of the messaging that Democrats should be doing ahead of those elections?
I think it is. I think it was a fantastic speech. I think it was one for the ages, maybe one of the best in the history of the House. But I think it was also great because it laid out the case against the bill in such a strong and clear-cut way, frequently using the Republicans' words against them. I mean, over and over again, he pulled letters that House Republicans had written, saying, hey, you got to change what's happening here in the bill with respect to Medicaid because it's going to hurt my constituents so badly. Then they turned around and voted for it. Same with Lisa Murkowski and some of the senators. So in all of those districts, and there's many of them, I think one of the letters he pulled had 21 House Republican signatures. We've got to go after them in all of those districts and then some. And the goal, I think, legitimately so, is to replace each and every one of those people who signed on to those letters, recognizing and acknowledging the cuts and the impact that these Medicaid provisions would have, but still voted for it, knowing it was going to hurt their constituents and cause the damage it's going to cause. They've got to be held accountable, and we have to make sure we're working to do that each and every day. And the accountability comes in November of 2026.
Well, and speaking of primary challenges and that accountability, you might have found yourself an unlikely ally in that cause because we've got Elon Musk, who's kind of reunited his feud with the president. He slammed the bill for not doing enough to reduce federal spending. He's the world's richest man. He said if the bill passed, he was going to try to launch a new political party dubbed the America Party that is focused on actually reducing the national debt. He also said he's going to back primary challenges against Republicans in Congress. Musk has kind of a mixed record with campaign spending. Obviously, he spent $288 million last year to help elect Trump and other Republicans, but then he had mixed results in that Wisconsin Supreme Court race. If Musk ends up disrupting upcoming Republican races, is that something Democrats are going to welcome? And what's your take on all this?
I mean, he's one of the strangest of strange bedfellows, I would say. And I can't say I'm looking to get there with him particularly. But, he's come around and the message he's putting out there now is correct. Where he'll be in 18 months, who knows? But at the end of the day, we certainly can't build our counter push on this on Elon Musk or what he is or isn't saying or what he is or isn't doing with his money. We've got trusted voices out there in states and districts across the country, especially healthcare providers, people in the medical community and the like, with respect to the debt issues. Wall Street's been very clear cut, even if you don't like Washington math, because there's a lot of games being played with it. Wall Street has to do it for a living. And yeah, they're saying it's $3 to $4 trillion debt that's going to be added to this as well. So we've got to get the messaging out, and we've got to use all the trusted sources that we can get to step in and step up on this. And we got to make sure we fight and win in November of 2026.
What's that saying? If you torture numbers long enough, they will confess. Congressman Glenn Ivey, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.